So headed into any spoiler season for players of the non-featured classes within that set, all eyes, of course, are on the expansion slot. Now, our Illusionist friends picked up, surprisingly, a brand new Herald, and my first reaction when I saw this card was, oh my god, it's yet another busted Illusionist card, which, to be fair, is generally my reaction when I see an Illusionist card for the first time. But a couple days removed and really thinking about this, not only is it maybe not in every build, but there's certain arguments that the card's not good. That said, I think the card's actually really, really smart and really, real cool design, especially when you consider that we are headed into, potentially this summer with the Guardian set, a much higher propensity to see a lot of poppers. So today, let's talk about this little gem, why I think it's really, really, really cool design. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, my flesh and blood friends. Welcome back to the channel, and thanks for tuning in for, that's right, unbelievably, an Illusionist-focused discussion here on the Dice Commando channel. That's not Fino behind the camera. What's going on here? I know, I get it. But hey, I got to give credit where credit's due. And I actually really like this card. I think it's really smart. Now, I kind of joked, although I wasn't really joking, for being honest. When I first saw this, I was like, oh god, yet another rabble. But you know, actually thinking about this and actually doing the math on it, plus noticing some things that aren't on this card, this is maybe not. It's certainly not as good as I initially reacted, and I think this is really smart. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about Herald of Secum. So this is another 2/7 Herald. Very important that it has Herald in the name, obviously, for our Prism friends. But when this attacks, you may put a yellow card from your hand into your soul. And if you do, deal 2 Arcane to any target. And of course, as we would expect as Phantasm, it's a regular 3/7 with block 3. For the red. Now, it is important to note, of course, that being a Majestic, this is not a full color arc like we've seen on the other Heralds. This is only in the red, so it's only available as a 3/7. Now, I did mention also that something is missing off of this card, so we put this next to Herald of Protection, or any other Herald. What we've typically seen on Heralds, not typically, we have seen on every other Herald, is that if you hit, put it into its hero's soul and generally do something, but at the very least, it goes into your soul. And you'll notice that this is very specifically lacking on Herald of Secum. And I have to admit that this is something that I missed on my first pass because I was so focused on the what happens if you do the thing, dealing the 2 Arcane, super good, right? Super good. But this itself not going into soul forces you, of course, into the obvious 3-card hand, right? So you need to pitch to do this. You need it in your hand. And, well, or in Arsenal, to be fair, but you need something to pitch, and you need a card to do the soul thing. Now, obviously, for Prism Awaken Over Soul, whenever a card with Herald in its name is put into Prism's soul during an action phase, you can search your deck for Figment, put in the arena, and then shuffle. And that's where the, oh, wow, that's amazing, is because you're guaranteed the Figment if you can do the thing. And then, obviously, with her chess piece, right, you can do the thing and flip it, and there's a lot of potential there. But again, 3-card hand, that really changes a fair amount of minimum 3-card hand, right? Really changes a lot of what our Illusionist players have been used to. Now, obviously, as a first turn play, this is pretty huge, right? Very few people are going to be packing AB2 into you, if AB at all. Plus, you're going to get all the triggers you need to start getting board state set up from the get-go. But after that, things get, of course, a little more interesting. Now, so on the surface, then you're like, oh, well, that's a 3-card hand. It doesn't go into soul itself, right? I'm not triggering potentially 2 Figments here. That's very interesting. Sure, I get the 2 Arcane out of it. So when we really start lining this up, right, the pros of this are you get a guaranteed soul and you get your Figment. It's very good into a heavy poppers meta because if this is, right, obviously if the card, any other Herald, if it's destroyed, doesn't go to your soul, this gets something in your soul. Because while, yes, it may be less efficient from an overall card standpoint, you are guaranteed to land the card that you want into your soul, regardless of whether this attack hits or not, whether this attack is popped or not, whatever it may be. And the arcane damage portion is very, very, very interesting. The con, though, is that, as I mentioned, 3-card hand, and it doesn't have the on-hit itself. And I actually do think that in this case, being red and only red is, I mean, it's not a drawback because the card itself exists, so that's good. It's better than not having anything. But not having this in yellow, that's interesting, right? It's interesting. And, you know, to say that's a con, I guess, is not technically a con. But I think you'd sure like to have the arc of this. I think our Illusionist players would have preferred this to come out in an arc, maybe so they could just explore trying it with the yellow. But again, I think that's part of the inherent balance of all of this in of itself. So while I'm not going to pretend to know all of the different Illusionists, I'm not even going to try and tell people how to play Illusionist and whether this card and how it fit it in or not. I really think that the intelligence of this headed into this summer, it's very high intelligence. So you are, right, if you're in a world as Prism where you're expecting a high number of poppers, which we do, right, or we are going to be, this is really smart. Giving them an outlet valve, essentially a safety valve. So if this card, I think that if this card went to Soul on its own, that our Illusionist friends would probably be playing it in most decks, just for the utility and its ability. The fact that it doesn't, I think it ends up being a sideboard card for popper matchups. And I think that's okay, right? I think this coming out as an expansion slot card for that purpose, I think that's pretty great. So hopefully my Illusionist players have been sounding off as we've been going through this, but I'm pretty impressed with this. No, it's not an amazing Windmill Slam card, and I think that's obviously why I'm impressed with it. You know, Illusionist has very historically been a very bipolar class. If you're not good into them, it sucks. If they're not good into who they're playing, it sucks. And that's pretty much where we land, right? So I think that trying to explore this design space where you have things that maybe are more fair and maybe a little bit more, I shouldn't say more flexible, but a little more utility, I think is actually pretty cool. And I'm really excited for this as we head into, you know, September's been kind of hinted that it might be Monarch 3. Could be very interesting heading into that and seeing what we get into the future. So anyway, let me know what you all are thinking. I just thought that was really cool and I want to talk about it. I know, Illusionists on this channel, what are you going to do? Coming at you from everywhere. Anyway, my friends, go Commando.